What do we got?
I think they've opened up a wooden Pandora's box here. I mean, look at all these timbers, all different sizes and shapes.
I think we might have hit a collapsed tunnel. Some sort of linear feature of wood that got disturbed.
Rick Lagina may have finally uncovered the very secret Oak Island was meant to guard. Buried beneath layers of traps, flooding systems, and centuries of failed attempts, a sealed vault, untouched for ages, has now come to light. Everything about it points to one conclusion. This was never just a myth or speculation. It was intentionally designed to remain hidden. Until now. But this discovery isn't just about treasure. What's inside suggests a far greater story, one tied to the immense power and influence of the Knights Templar. It hints at a legacy of incredible wealth, hidden knowledge, and artifacts that could potentially reshape history itself. Compared to this, everything previously found on Oak Island seems minor. Rick and his team didn't just uncover remnants of the past, they pushed it to reveal its greatest secret. After generations of searching, the truth finally feels within reach. Oak Island was never simply a mystery. It was a vault, waiting for the right moment to be opened and change everything. The breakthrough didn't come with dramatic fanfare. Instead, it happened quietly, almost easy to miss considering its importance. After months of sonar scans and unsuccessful drilling, the team detected something unusual about 180 feet beneath the swamp, a perfectly sealed void. It hadn't appeared in any earlier excavation records, and according to geological data, it shouldn't have existed at all. Yet there it was, a hidden chamber carved into bedrock, positioned beneath a tunnel aligned with the original money pit. For Rick, this wasn't just another dig site. It was the anomaly they had been searching for, the missing piece that never quite made sense before. Early scans raised even more questions. The metallic readings were unusually dense, too consistent to be natural and too precise to be random. This wasn't scattered debris. It was intentional, layered, engineered, and aligned alongside a second shaft that didn't appear on any 18th century maps. That's when it became clear. This wasn't the work of settlers or later treasure hunters. It had been constructed centuries earlier. When the data came in, Rick said something that stood out. This could be the original vault. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. When the team finally broke through the outer seal, they discovered hand-carved stone, aged but clearly crafted. At the entrance was a large limestone slab, about the size of a door, marked with a symbol impossible to ignore, a cross patay strongly associated with the Knights Templar. The carving showed centuries of wear. Carbon dating later confirmed its age, placing it before colonial settlements and even earlier European maps of the area. What amazed researchers even more was how well everything had been preserved. The slab had been sealed using marine clay, a method specifically designed to protect against saltwater damage. Whoever built this structure didn't just understand construction, they had mastered it. Along the edges of the stone, faint but visible, were detailed markings, symbols and lines that appeared to be coded. Further analysis revealed something remarkable. These markings closely matched carvings found at Rosslyn Chapel, a site long linked to Templar history. When Marty Lagina recognized the connection, his reaction said everything. This was no longer just a theory. For the first time, there was a real physical link, clear and undeniable, connecting Oak Island to the Knights Templar. Not speculation or legend, but proof carved into stone and hidden for more than 6 centuries. But what came next took things even further. As the team continued exploring deeper into the chamber, another radar scan revealed something remarkable. The signals came back in perfectly spaced intervals, metallic echoes repeating with precise consistency. Whatever was beneath them wasn't scattered randomly. It was arranged in structured rows, far too uniform to be natural rock. Rick decided to proceed with a micro-drill test, carefully extracting a small sample without disturbing the chamber. When the results came back, they told a story no one had anticipated. The sample contained quartz dust mixed with fine particles of gold, not raw gold, but refined. It had been melted, shaped, and worked by skilled hands long ago. This wasn't currency. It resembled the kind of craftsmanship seen in ancient relics. For the first time in years, Rick set aside his usual caution and made a statement that sent shockwaves through the Oak Island community. They were no longer chasing a legend. They were standing on top of it. That moment changed everything. If this gold had been refined long before Europeans arrived in Nova Scotia, then this discovery wasn't just about treasure anymore. It pointed to something far greater, a search for lost knowledge and a hidden chapter of history. The team realized they needed answers not just from the ground beneath them, but from the past itself. And that's when history seemed to respond. In the French Naval Archives in La Rochelle, a maritime historian uncovered a long-forgotten map dated 1701. Faded and fragile, it carried a name that immediately caught Rick and Marty's attention. L'Île Perdue, the Island of Lost Gold. When adjusted for centuries of magnetic changes, the map's coordinates aligned almost perfectly with Oak Island. But the biggest surprise was written in the margins. In a mix of Latin and Old French were the words Coffre du Temple, the coffers of the temple, described as hidden beneath engineered layers designed to collapse if disturbed. When the brothers compared the map to their excavation layout, the match was almost unsettling. The chamber they had just uncovered sat exactly where the map indicated the treasure would be. Marty called it too precise to be a coincidence. Rick, however, felt something more deliberate was at play. To him, it suggested that someone in La Rochelle had charted this location centuries before Oak Island was even officially known. That meant the secret of the vault didn't disappear with the fall of the Templars. It survived. It may have been carried across the Atlantic by sailors escaping persecution, bringing fragments of the Order's hidden wealth with them. Again and again, their research pointed to a mysterious name found in old port records, a ship often referred to as La Rochelle's ghost. According to legend, it vanished around the time the Knights Templar were being arrested. Some historians believe it never truly sank, but instead changed identity and quietly sailed west into the unknown. Now, this rediscovered map seemed to support that theory. Oak Island wasn't a sluchinist. It was a destination, a carefully chosen final resting place for something never meant to fall into the hands of the French crown. Back underground, the excavation pushed forward. As layers of stone and sediment were cleared from the newly identified tunnel, one worker noticed a faint glimmer embedded in the limestone. At first, it looked like a thin piece of wire, but it turned out to be much more. It was a fragment of a delicate brass chain, fused into the rock like a fossil preserved over time. Once cleaned and examined closely, its details became clear. Each link carried tiny engravings, all shaped into the unmistakable Templar cross. This wasn't just decoration. It wasn't a piece of personal jewelry. It appeared to be ceremonial, likely part of the regalia worn by high-ranking members of the Order. Lab analysis confirmed it. The artifact wasn't colonial or modern. Its metal composition matched 13th century French craftsmanship, nearly identical to chains recovered from Templar burial sites near Poitiers. Every detail, from the way it was soldered to the purity of the alloy, pointed directly to medieval Europe. The implications were enormous. This object existed more than 150 years before any recorded European presence in the New World. That single chain alone had the potential to rewrite the history of Oak Island. But what came next changed everything once again. As the team carefully brushed away the soil beneath the chain, they uncovered a small lead container. It was compact and light enough to hold in both hands, yet heavily corroded, as if it had barely survived the passage of time. Its seams were sealed with hardened wax and resin, each edge shaped by hand. Inside, preserved in oxygen-deprived mud, was something extraordinary: a folded piece of parchment, fragile yet intact. Under controlled conditions, conservators slowly unrolled it. As it opened, faint black ink began to appear, lines of medieval French script reaching across centuries. When translated, the message sent chills through the room. It spoke of l'Arche Grande, the Great Ark, and warned of le secret sous la rose, the secret beneath the rose. These weren't random phrases. They were recognized Templar codes. The Great Ark referred to sacred relics believed to have been taken from Jerusalem, while the rose symbolized secrecy, a hidden truth meant to remain protected. Experts compared the handwriting to records preserved in the Archives Nationales de France. One match stood out: a scribe who had been active in Paris right up until the very day the Knights Templar were condemned in 1307. That connection placed the parchment at the very end of the order's existence. But there was more. Using infrared imaging, researchers uncovered a hidden detail within the text. The first letters of each line formed an acrostic, a concealed message. When decoded, it revealed a Latin phrase, Domus Dei, meaning House of God. For Templar scholars, this phrase carries deep significance. It doesn't just refer to faith, it points to the inner sanctum of the order, the place where their most sacred relics were believed to be hidden before disappearing from Europe. Rick stood quietly over the translation, before finally saying that whoever placed this here didn't want it to be easily found. They wanted it to be understood. The chain, the parchment, the map, these weren't separate discoveries. They were connected pieces of a single path. A path that began in medieval France, crossed the Atlantic, and led straight to the swamps of Nova Scotia. For Rick and Marty, the conclusion was unavoidable. This vault wasn't a myth. It was carefully planned, deliberately designed, and heavily protected. And whatever it was, hiding went far beyond gold. That realization changed everything. This wasn't just history, it was advanced design. Whoever created these clues had knowledge of engineering, navigation, and concealment far beyond what was expected for their time. And if these artifacts were meant to guide the right people to this place, then the structure itself may have been built to keep everyone else out. Acting on that theory, the team adjusted their borehole targets, focusing on the area just beyond the vault's alignment. What they discovered next didn't resemble anything from earlier surveys. The next chamber was unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't rough stone or collapsed debris. It was precisely constructed. As the drill pushed deeper, the borehole camera revealed something completely unexpected: a lattice of wood and brass woven directly into the bedrock. This wasn't natural, it was engineered. Wooden beams were locked together with brass pulleys and water control valves, forming a cross-shaped system that closely resembled rigging mechanisms used on medieval ships. Everything was interconnected. Every movement triggered another, creating a chain reaction waiting to happen. One wrong move could cause the entire chamber to flood instantly or collapse in on itself. Whoever built this didn't just want to hide the vault, they designed it to defend itself. What impressed experts even more was the level of sophistication. For something believed to date back to the 14th century, the craftsmanship was far beyond expectations. The angles, the joinery, and the precision of the brass components all suggested knowledge well ahead of its time. When maritime specialists examined the structure, they immediately noticed its similarity to pulley systems used on medieval ships, especially those designed for anchors and cargo handling. That realization changed everything. These weren't ordinary builders, they were sailors. More specifically, they may have been Templars who fled Europe and used their seafaring skills to create an underground stronghold unlike anything ever recorded. For Rick, this discovery completely shifted the narrative. Oak Island wasn't random, and it wasn't just a feat of architecture. It carried the unmistakable signature of naval design, built by people who understood the sea and intended to keep something hidden forever. As the team carefully cleared away debris, Rick captured the tension perfectly. This wasn't a vault meant to be opened. It was built to destroy itself if anyone tried. That idea stuck. The team began referring to it as a guardian mechanism, a defensive system so advanced that every step forward felt dangerous. Every vibration, every drill movement was monitored closely, as if they were navigating a trap set centuries ago. But the mystery wasn't limited to what lay underground. Part of it was right there on the surface. Using advanced LiDAR scanning, the team mapped the island's terrain and uncovered something just as surprising. Hidden beneath vegetation and uneven ground were carefully placed stone markers, not random rocks or natural formations, but deliberate placements arranged with purpose. These markers formed a geometric pattern, stretching from Smith's Cove through the money pit and all the way to the swamp. When the data was visualized, the pattern became clear, a perfectly balanced cross. But it wasn't just symbolic, it was functional. Each intersection aligned with known dig sites or underground anomalies that had previously been dismissed as natural. Then Marty took the analysis even further. After aligning the layout with celestial coordinates, the entire formation began to resemble something familiar: the Orion constellation. The precision of the alignment was too striking to ignore. The same star pattern had been used in historical Templar navigation charts to guide ships across open waters. This meant it wasn't just a map, it was a code. The Templars may have embedded astronomical knowledge directly into the landscape, creating a system that only those trained in celestial navigation could truly understand. Rick stood motionless as the pattern came together on the screen. The money pit, Smith's Cove, and the newly discovered vault, all perfectly aligned with the 3 central stars of Orion. It was a staggering realization. Oak Island wasn't just hiding something, it had been designed to point directly to it. The entire island functioned like a massive physical code, turning the landscape itself into a navigational key. Nothing was random. Every shaft, every chamber, every artifact was part of a much larger plan. And that led to a chilling thought. What if the treasure people had been searching for all this time was only the surface layer? What if the vault, the traps, and even the map were all protecting something far more significant? Something created with purpose, precision, and almost ritual-like intent? Following the newly mapped cross pattern, the team drilled into yet another hidden space. But this chamber was different. Gone were the rough wooden beams and structural supports. Instead, the walls were made of smooth, polished limestone, carefully finished as if meant to endure for centuries. At the center stood a structure that immediately drew everyone's attention. A sealed archway. Carved into it was a striking symbol, a fully opened rose surrounded by twisting vines and layered crosses. This wasn't just decorative. It closely resembled the Rosicrucian Rose Cross, an emblem later associated with groups believed by some historians to have carried forward hidden Templar traditions. Its placement made the significance clear. This wasn't just another chamber. It appeared to be the entrance to the primary vault, the very heart of what Oak Island had been built to protect. Before anyone attempted to open it, the team brought in scanning equipment. The readings were unlike anything they had seen before. Metal concentrations spiked dramatically, dense, organized, and entirely contained behind the sealed archway. Whatever was beyond wasn't random debris. It was a concentrated mass. Magnetic sensors struggled to remain stable, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of metal, likely gold mixed with other alloys. For the first time, there was no doubt. This wasn't speculation anymore. It was real. The data suggested something extraordinary. A tightly packed chamber filled with structured deposits, chests, containers, possibly dozens or even hundreds of them. Rick made the call immediately. All drilling operations stopped. No one was willing to risk triggering another hidden defense system. Instead, preservation experts were brought in. Using fiber optic cameras and non-invasive imaging tools, they carefully guided a small lens through a narrow borehole, slipping it past the sealed archway. The live feed flickered on. At first, it showed only a narrow corridor of polished stone, layered with centuries of sediment. Then, a faint glimmer appeared. As the camera adjusted, a soft reflection broke through the darkness. Gold. There was no mistaking it. Under the LED light, it gave off a warm, aged glow that filled the screen. The room fell completely silent. As the camera held steady, more reflections appeared, then more and more still. Waves of golden light emerged from the shadows. This wasn't just a single object. It was an entire chamber filled with them. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of artifacts, untouched for over 6 centuries, hidden behind the rose-marked seal. Rick didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His expression said it all: shock, disbelief, and something deeper. A realization that this wasn't just about treasure anymore, it was about meaning. A message shaped through stone, geometry, and belief, preserved across centuries. For generations, Oak Island had been known for failed searches, misleading clues, and impossible obstacles. But now, as the Golden Chamber came into view, the truth felt undeniable. This island wasn't protecting wealth for the sake of riches. It was protecting a purpose. As the video feed stabilized, clearer shapes began to emerge, distinct outlines, carefully arranged objects. And then, at the very center of the chamber, something stood out. It wasn't a chest or a pile of coins. It was something crafted, a chalice. It stood upright on a limestone base, its form unmistakable. A wide cup flared at the rim, supported by a stem engraved with delicate vine patterns. Days later, when recovery specialists finally retrieved it, the entire room fell silent. It was heavier than expected, and its appearance was unlike ordinary gold. Instead of a harsh shine, it gave off a softer, almost otherworldly glow. Lab analysis revealed something extraordinary. The metal wasn't standard, it was a rare blend. Byzantine gold fused with Frankish silver, a combination not seen since the 12th century. It symbolized two worlds, East and West, brought together not through conflict, but through craftsmanship, belief, and secrecy. Under magnification, a Latin inscription was found circling the inner rim. Veritas sub rosa, truth beneath the rose. The phrase is deeply connected to Templar tradition, representing secrets kept under oath, meant never to be spoken openly. Rick looked at the chalice quietly and said, almost to himself, that this might be what they had died to protect. No one replied. Every camera in the room focused on that single object, glowing under artificial light, its shadow stretching across centuries of mystery. News spread quickly. Within weeks, officials arrived from the Vatican, specifically from its Department of Sacred Antiquities. Their request was clear: full documentation, detailed analysis, and verification of the chalice's origin. This wasn't casual curiosity, it was official and highly confidential. Rick's team cooperated, sharing their findings through proper archaeological channels. Soon after, a specialist from the Vatican Apostolic Archives reached out with information that stunned everyone. The chalice, its size, inscription, and composition matched a sacred artifact recorded in papal documents from 1312. It was believed to have been lost when Templar records were seized and destroyed. According to those records, the vessel once held relics connected to early Christian sites in Jerusalem, possibly transported during the Crusades. Its last known location was in the possession of a high-ranking Templar official in France, just before the mass arrests began. After that, it vanished from history. No record of confiscation, no record of destruction. It simply disappeared until now. More than 600 years later, it had resurfaced beneath an island in Nova Scotia. And with the Vatican now involved, it was clear this discovery went far beyond history. A joint investigation was proposed under international cultural heritage laws. Legal teams from Canada, France, and the Holy See quickly became involved, working to determine ownership, preservation, and control. What began as a treasure hunt had suddenly turned into a matter of global diplomacy. Under cultural heritage rules, any artifact predating colonial history and tied to European origins could fall under shared international custody. But this case was even more complex. The chalice wasn't just historical, it was potentially sacred. That added an entirely new dimension. If recognized as a religious artifact, it could fall under ecclesiastical authority. Marty summed it up simply: this had become much bigger than Oak Island. Almost overnight, the site transformed. What was once an excavation zone became a tightly secured archaeological facility. Security quickly became tighter. Legal observers arrived, media access was completely shut down, and every artifact, fragment, and piece of data was carefully recorded and preserved under strict protocols. But while the world focused on ownership, Rick focused on something else entirely: meaning. For him, this was never about possession. It was about understanding why all of this had been created in the first place. That answer began to emerge from something the team had almost overlooked: the original limestone Templar stone found at the chamber's entrance. At the suggestion of an inscription expert, the team re-examined it using full-spectrum infrared imaging. What they uncovered changed everything. Beneath the visible carvings was another hidden layer of text. It wasn't decorative. It was a set of coordinates, but these coordinates didn't point to Nova Scotia. When plotted on modern maps, they led to a remote area deep in the North Atlantic, roughly 1,200 kilometers away, a largely unexplored and isolated stretch of land. Alongside the coordinates was a Latin phrase: Hic est arca minor, major ultra est. This is the lesser repository. The greater lies beyond. The meaning was immediate and powerful. Everything on Oak Island, the traps, the symbols, the vault, wasn't the final destination. It was a waypoint, a marker. Rick laid the parchment next to the stone inscriptions and studied them alongside the markings engraved on the chalice. One symbol kept appearing over and over again: the rose. This wasn't a coincidence. It was the key. Sub rosa. Beneath the rose wasn't just a phrase about secrecy. It was literal, directional. The rose wasn't decoration. It was a guide pointing towards something beyond. When the team overlaid the island's LiDAR-generated cross pattern with the newly discovered coordinates, the result was astonishing. The same celestial alignment tied to the Orion constellation didn't stop at Oak Island. It extended across the ocean. Historians began revisiting the story of the Templar fleet. While some ships were accounted for, others had simply vanished. But maybe they weren't lost at all. Maybe they had split up. One group may have stayed behind, building the Lesser Repository, a guarded vault designed to mislead, protect, and guide future seekers. The other group may have continued across the Atlantic, carrying the most sacred objects to a second, even more secure location, somewhere no king or empire could ever reach. In that sense, the chalice wasn't the end of the journey. It was proof. Proof that the system worked. Proof that the plan endured. Proof that none of this was random. It was all carefully designed. Two hidden sanctuaries, separated by an ocean, yet connected through the same symbols, the same stars, the same stonework, and the same belief. And Oak Island? It was only the beginning. If this discovery captured your curiosity, there's still more to uncover. Hidden histories and mysteries that continue to wait just beyond the surface.